So let's answer a very important question quickly. Who is Ahl Al Bayt? We see that the words Ahl Al Bayt are only mentioned twice in the Quran. In Surah Al-Ahzab 33 and 33, we find mentioned Ahl Al Bayt. Specifically in this particular portions of Scripture, the first portion, starting actually from verse 32 and going to verse 33, he's talking to the consorts of the prophet, okay? So we see that the whole context in Arabic is in the feminine gender. When we look at the pronouns, they're all in the feminine gender. And then when he gets to verse 33, it goes from feminine gender in the pronouns to then masculine gender. And we have a note on 33 and 33. It says in 37 and 15, notice the transition in the clause to the masculine gender, while before this the verbs and pronouns were in the feminine gender, as referring to the consorts. The statement in this clause is now more general, including, besides the consorts, the whole family, okay? So now when we talk about the whole family, we're going to describe who that whole family is, okay? So what we'll do is go now to the second mentioning of Ahl Al Bayt in the Quran, which is from Surah Al-Hud, the 11th surah of the Quran. And if you take some time on your own to read section 7, 69 through 73, what we find in this portion of Scripture is that Ahl Al Bayt is identified as the house of Israel. Okay? Sarah was talking in this portion of Scripture, and it was answered to her because she said, قالت يا ويلتا أألد وأنا عجوز وهذا بألي شيخا. She said, alas for me, shall I bear a child, seeing I'm an old woman, and my husband here is an old man? Inna hadha la sha'un ajibun. So she says that would indeed be a wonderful thing. And so Sarah was answered, قالوا أتعجبنا من أمر الله رحمة الله وبركاته عليكم أهل البيت إنه حميد مجيد. So here we see Ahl Al Bayt identified as the house of Israel, as this particular section is dealing with Abraham and the pronouncement of Isaac and Jacob, okay? And we know that the Quran mentions them as the possessors of the prophetic lineage. So here we see Ahl Al Bayt identified as the house of Israel. And we can confirm this in hadith, and we can also use things that the prophet has confirmed with his own sayings to prove this reality. And what's so important about this is that what we're going to find mentioned in the hadith and what we see that Muhammad has proclaimed himself to be is actually true. And so we understand that Ahl Al Bayt is the storehouse of risalat and religious guidance, okay? And we are also part of the progeny of Muhammad. And from the time that the prophet left this world until now, Ahl Al Bayt, we have been oppressed and deprived of our rights. All of our rights have been usurped, okay? And part of it is because of this confusion. There was no prophethood outside of the descendants of Israel. And this is what the Quran confirms. Now, to confirm this, the first place we're going to go is to Surah Al-Ma'idah 5 and 20 of the Quran, where he expressly mentions the fact that prophethood and kingship were not given to any other group. And so in Surah Al-Ma'idah 5 and 20, we find, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ أَذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ جَعَلَ فِيكُمْ أَنْبِيَاءَ وَجَعَلَكُمْ مُلُوكًا وَآتَاكُمْ مَا لَمْ يُؤْتِ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. So he says, remember when Moses said to his people, O my people, talking to the Israelites, call in remembrance the favor of Allah unto you. Okay? When he produced prophets among you and made you kings. and gave to you what he had not given to any other among the peoples. Okay, so we're going to find this also confirmed in 29:27 of the Quran and 38 and 45 of the Quran. The specific Arabic that is used here paints the picture of exclusivity. So if you have a Quran, go to Surah Al-Ankabut, which is the 29th surah of the Quran, and the 27th verse, and you will find وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَجَعَلْنَا فِي ذُرِّيَّتِهِ النُّبْوَةَ وَالْكِتَابَ وَأَتَيْنَاهُ أَجْرَهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَإِنَّهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ لَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. So he says that we gave Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and ordained among his progeny, literally amongst his offspring, from that root word dara, from his offspring, from his children, from his descendants. We did what? We ordained among his descendants and his children prophecy. And we know that the seed is determined by the father in Hebraic culture. So we're still also talking about a male line here. He said, and revelation. He says, nubuwata wal kitaba. So we understand, for short, just to be short with it, naba is where nubuwata, the root word of nubuwa. Okay, the word naba, and it's a Hebrew word. Okay, and it means prophecy. And also the bringing of Sharia, to be short. So the bringing of Sharia and prophecy and prophethood comes from the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? So the Quran confirms this in 5 and 20 of the Quran, 29 and 27 of the Quran. And so he says here, وَجَعَلْنَا فِي ذُرِّيَّتِهِ al-nubuwata wal-kitaba. Okay, the kitab refers to the writings, the scripture, the revelation, the decree, the law, the scripture, the teachings, okay, the ordinances. All of this was the inheritance of Israel, and what we understand from the Quran 11:69 to 73, Ahl Al Bayt is the house of Israel. And because of this covenant promise that we find inside of the Quran, and we also find in the Bible, we understand that Ahl Al Bayt is the storehouse of Risalat, okay, religious guidance, and Khilafat, okay? This is the source, the undisputed source, because it was covenanted with Allah. He made a covenant with the house of Israel, an eternal covenant. It cannot be broken, okay? And so we must understand, as it is written in the Quran, وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ, this was a what? A wahaba. It was a gift that was granted and dedicated to the house of Israel, and it was bestowed upon them. Not to be removed, cannot be removed, okay, by time or circumstance. Genesis, Bereshit 27 and 29 says, let people serve you and nations bow down to you and be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. So now let's go back and further prove that prophethood was exclusively given to the house of Israel. So as we move on to Quran 38 and 45, we find what Quribadana Ibrahim wa Ishaqa wa Ya'quba uli al-aidi wal absar, and commemorate our servants Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, possessors of power and vision. Okay? Possessors of power and vision. Now, this is where he specifically uses the Arabic language to paint the picture of this exclusive service that he has bestowed upon the house of Israel. So let's continue on to verse 46 from Surah 38 of the Quran, and he says, Inna aklasnahum bikalisatin dikra edar. And he says, wa innahum indana la min al mustafaina al akyar. So there's two words in these two verses, 46 and 47, we need to look at and be familiar with. One of those words is safa. Okay? He says, al-mustafaina al-akyar. Okay? So we know that the word mustafaina, the root word, is safa. Okay? Safa. That's where we get the meaning to choose in preference to grant to another a preference in the choice of something. Okay? It also means to take the best of. Okay? To take the best of something. Chosen one. Okay? The best and chosen. So they were the best of what was chosen. Okay? Al-Mustafaina. And then he says, Ina aklasnahum bikalisatin dikra edar. So let's be clear. In the Arabic, the word kalasa, which is the root of aklasnahum, and bikalisatin that you see here, the root is kalasa. And it literally means to be pure, unmixed, free, retire, alone, exclusive, okay, private, okay. The opposite of private is public. So the office of prophethood was not a public office that anybody can go sign up and apply for, but it was a gift that was constituted, established, attributed, ordained, and bestowed as a gift upon the children of Israel. Okay? And here they are described as Mustafa, chosen, the best of what was chosen. And this word kalasa literally means distinct quality, someone that is alone for someone, okay, or something that is singularly used for something, one who does something exclusively for anyone, okay? So just like, you know, after you play sports, if you had an illustrious career, many times your jersey gets retired, okay? This office of prophecy is a retired office. It is a private office, and it is unmixed. There is nobody in it except for Israel. This is Ahl Al Bayt. This is why Ahl Al Bayt is called the storehouse of Risalat. Okay, because they have the Nubuwah, the bringing of Sharia and prophecy. Okay, and they also have kingship that was established in the line of David in the house of Judah. There is no other kings for the Abrahamic seed. Okay? And the same thing we find with the priesthood. The priesthood is an order, and it is an unmixed order, an exclusive order. It's not a public application for priesthood. It works by lineage. And the first qualification to be a prophet, to be a king or a priest, is you got to come from the house of Jacob. Okay? So the Arabic paints a clear and unconfusing picture, and nobody else is spoken about like this in the Quran. And so this establishes the doctrine and the evidence for Ahl Al Bayt, who they are and why they have been especially chosen as the leaders of this community. So we can further prove this point simply by going to a hadith that was narrated by Anas bin Malik. It is stated in Sunan ibn Majah 40:39 that the Prophet said, Wala al-Makdiyu ila Isa ibn Maryama. So here we have the Prophet saying that the only Mahdi is Isa ibn Maryam. So this shows us that the Mahdi and Isa are actually the same person. The Prophet says himself that the Mahdi is from his lineage. Literally, the Prophet said, Qala Rasulullahi al-Mahdiyu min wuldi. He's from my family, my progeny, my children, my descendants. And we find this in Bihr al-Anwar, volume 51, page 85, Kashf al-Gama.